Here are top 10 scariest fighter of all time.
Number 10. Chuck Liddell. Let's just pretend that comeback fight never happened. In his heyday, Chuck Liddell was one of the scariest men on the planet. The face of the UFC for a few years. Without the Iceman, it would not be where it is today. Liddell was the UFC light heavyweight champion and spent his days knocking fools out for fun. His fighting style was brutal and relentless. Liddell went to war. Of course, this wasn't sustainable towards the end of his career, which is why 6 of his last 7 fights ended with him losing by KO. But back in the mid-noughties, he was the man. Number 9. Quinton Rampage Jackson.
In his heyday, Rampage was as fearsome a fighter as you could face. A powerhouse of a man. Who can forget him picking up Ricardo Rona and bombing him into the canvas? You're not supposed to be able to do that to another man, but then Jackson was no regular fighter. A former UFC light heavyweight champion, he struck an iconic figure with that huge chain around his neck. His menacing gaze added to his aura of savagery. Rampage has an iconic rivalry with Wanderlei Silva.
Number 7. Alistair Overeem.
There was a version of Alistair Overeem that was literally the Super Saiyan of combat sports athletes. We're talking of course about Uberim, a ludicrously sculpted, genetically modified human being that destroyed all in his path. We're fairly sure he had more banned substances in him than a North Korean nuclear missile factory, but that's okay. Overeem's physique wasn't just cosmetic. He was a genuinely elite fighter with titles in Dream, Strikeforce and K1. He's one of only 2 men to hold titles in kickboxing and MMA. At the same time, Overeem's beaten 5 former UFC champions, although he's never held the belt himself.
Number 7. Yoel Romero. The Soldier of God is a genetic miracle. Hailing from Cuba, this barrel of pure muscle is still an elite middleweight at the age of 42. He can drag you to the ground or he can knock you down with a moment of explosive dynamism. Ask Chris Weidman or Luke Rockhold. That's how hard and quick he can hit. That physique and Cuban accent just lend to his aura of intimidation. There's a reason Michael Bisping found every reason not to fight him. And we honestly don't blame the count at all. Number 6. Wanderlei Silva. His nickname is the Axe Murder for crying out loud. Of course, he's a long way from his heyday now, but his fighting style was one of the most brutal we've ever seen. He didn't just look mean, he was mean. 80% of his wins came from finishes, as he ruthlessly blitzed his opponents, throwing caution to the wind. Any of Pride's greatest ever fighters, he's a former middleweight champion. He holds the record for the most wins, knockouts, title defenses, and longest winning streak with the redundant Japanese promotion. Number 5. Cris Cyborg. The only female MMA fighter on this list, Cris Cyborg is arguably the greatest of all time, although Amanda Nunes might have stolen that mantle. For years nobody was able to get near her. A physically dominant featherweight in a thin division, every girl that stood across from her in the cage knew that they were going to earn their paycheck through a savage beating. Until Nunes came along and knocked her out. Cyborg had lost since her debut back in 2005. Her physique gives her the ability to just dominate other women. That's the reason she's this high on the list.
A frightening specimen.
Number 4. Anthony Rumble Johnson. Now retired, Anthony Rumble Johnson is arguably the most intimidating light heavyweight fighter of all time. Sure, John Jones is the best ever and seemingly invincible, but while Rumble wasn't as technically good, he had the ability to change your brain. Just ask Glover Teixeira. He was the Francis Ngannou of his day and division. 16 of his 22 wins came via knockout. Now he's a full-time bodybuilder. It's insane to imagine that he fought as low as the welterweight division. Number 3. Mirko Cro Cop. The Croatian fighter is renowned for his head kicks. Right leg hospital, left leg cemetery. He won via knockout 71 times in his combined combat sports record. A former special forces operative in his native country, Cro Cop is as intimidating as they come. With a stoicism that matched his lethal ferocity in the cage or ring, this all combines to make him the embodiment of menace. Daniel Cormier might beat him 9 out of 10 times, but put the 2 men side by side and tell me who is scarier. Number 2. Fedor Emelianenko. The last emperor is ice cold and has an otherworldliness about him. Nothing fazed the former Russian heavyweight champion. He became a mythological figure, going almost 10 years without getting beaten. Cold, mysterious and unstoppable, his aura and mystique grew, with many considering him the greatest ever. While you could make the argument that the fact that he's never fought for the UFC has actually added to his fear factor. He's talked about like a creature from the upside down in Stranger Things. Brutally efficient, he was also slightly undersized as a heavyweight, making his achievements all the more exciting. Number 1. Francis Ngannou. Possibly the most terrifying fighter active today. The Cameroonian UFC heavyweight is in Absolute monster. Is he technically the best fighter in the division? No way. But in terms of a pure fear factor, the Predator is top of the pile. He possesses knockout power like Tyson on steroids. When he connected with Alistair Overeem's chin, we thought we had witnessed our first death in the octagon. The man is frightening. He's Coach Junior Dos Santos, Cain Velasquez, Curtis Blades, Andrei Arlovsky, and Jairzinho Zenstrup. Stand in front of him at your peril.